Kayla, can you believe that Pride and Prejudice is turning 20 this year? Because I can't even believe that I can remember 20 years ago, let alone that the movie is turning 20.
I know. I actually can't believe it.
So I know that the 1995 BBC Pride and Prejudice is kind of more accurate to the book, but there's so many conversations around which version is preferred or which version is better. I feel like I've grown to love the 2005 version with Keira Knightley more just because it makes me feel so deeply, and I just always feel so like so many butterflies in my stomach by the end. I feel like it's a more emotional depiction of the
Yeah.
story, but it's not quite comparing apples and oranges because it's the same book based on the same book, but it's almost like comparing different types of apples because they're similar but completely different at the same time, if that makes any sense. Do you have a favorite?
No, you make so much sense. Because I'm definitely Team 2005. I will take it to my grave that it is the
It's
best.
so good.
It's so good. But I do think the 1995 TV show was very accurate to the book.
Yeah.
But I just think the cast of 2005 is better in my opinion, and it does a good job of being like ethereal and just fully immersing you into what I imagine Jane Austen's world was, or what she
Yeah.
wanted it to be when she was writing. So it's just so, like you said, it's just, they're so different, but they are the same at the same time. But the 2005 one does just emit such like an emotional response for me when I watch it. I
Yeah.
can't help it. I just, the soundtrack, everything. So I am a huge fan of the 2005. And I think they each give us something a little bit different. Colin Firth dies into a lake. And then Matthew
Yeah.
Macfadyen has the iconic immortal hand flex that will just
Yes.
always
And
be
that
still in
walk
time.
through the fog. The walk through the
Yes.
fog specifically almost gets me more than the hand flex because every single time, no matter how many times I watch it, I always think the camera is going to pan or it's going to cut to Elizabeth. And every single time I'm like, oh yeah, we really just like it's such an extended, peaceful shot of seeing him walk through the fog to come greet Elizabeth at the end of the movie. And something about it just makes me feel at peace.
It's so beautiful. The whole movie is just like a work of art. Every single
Yeah.
still is a work of art.
It really
and,
is.
And I am Team Matthew personally. Team Matthew McFadyen,
Oh,
2005. I just think he fully captured the essence of Darcy and like the gentleness that he had towards her, while also maintaining that like straightforward bluntness that kind of has you like
yeah.
wonder if he's rude or if that's just how he is. I think he nailed it. But which Darcy is your favorite?
I feel like I would have to agree. I think Matthew has really grown on me because I feel like he has a sweetness that some of the other adaptations didn't give me as a viewer, or I didn't pick up on them in the same way. Because when you reach the end of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, and even when you rewatch, you can identify that he really is just like uncomfortable and anxious instead of just straight mean.
Yeah.
Because honestly, hot take of the century, I think I'm a Bingley girl and not a Darcy girl, like anyway. Because I feel like if Darcy treated me the way that he treated Elizabeth, I would be like, okay, bet, and never speak to him again. Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I don't know, but also I'm not Elizabeth, what have you. But I feel like that is the point of Pride and Prejudice. I remember talking about it in a Jane Austen class once. Or maybe not the point of Pride and Prejudice, but like a really important detail that a lot of people gloss over is that Darcy and Elizabeth are both headstrong. Like literally they are prideful and they are prejudiced towards one
Yes.
another. And they're not necessarily supposed to be like these beacons that are 100% a personality trait we aspire to. It's like more complicated and
Yeah.
nuanced like that, or than that. And I feel like that is just so fascinating. But all that being said, the fog and the hand flex do live rent free in my mind, even if I am a Bingley girl. And I just, why do you think that the hand flex specifically is so like people fixate on it so much? It's so talked about and so popular, even though Matthew, I'm pretty sure, said in press for Succession that he like didn't know that it was so popular. Keira Knightley said she didn't know it was so popular either. I'm like, y'all,
Wow.
you got to lock in. What are you talking about?
Get online. No, I really think it's all about the female gaze, and I think that's first and foremost. Jane Austen just did a phenomenal job of making women feel seen, I think in a time where they didn't feel that as much, or it wasn't centered on them. So I just think it's about the female gaze. I mean, that moment, the little hand flex, how he was so gentle towards her, how he made her feel seen, in that, like, she loved to walk when he goes, do you want me to walk you back, or do you want me to take you back to the village? And she goes, I'm quite fond of walking. And he goes, I know, because he paid attention to her and he made her feel seen in ways that maybe she didn't in society when it's all about, you know, the glitz and glam. So I think that was huge. And then just like that he was so affected by touching her hand, because men and women didn't really touch unless it was moments like you were helping them into the carriage or like escorting them somewhere. So I think there's so many moments in the movie that really hype up the small details instead of just like creating things for the sake of it.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of feels like watching poetry instead of just like binge reading something that has a ton of information and a ton of content. It's so slow and detailed and beautiful. I totally agree. And that also reminds me of another detail of how I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the movie, when Lizzie's walking around her home, the Bennett home, it's the same music as when she visits Pemberley. And it's everything's connected. It's all connected. Joe Wright, you genius. I love you. And talking about Pemberley, I have to tell you, I got to visit some of these filming locations from the 2005 Pride and Prejudice in Derbyshire when I was in England. So I got to go to the Peak District where she's like standing on the cliffs, and I genuinely felt like she looks in that scene of just like closing your eyes and the wind blowing and just like transporting somewhere else. It felt like a postcard. Like I couldn't believe what I was looking at was real because it looked so different than anything I'd ever seen before. And then where else did we go? We went to Chatsworth House, which is where they filmed Pemberley, like where Pemberley is in real life. And that was beautiful. And thank goodness it was a sunny day. So even walking around the gardens and outside and stuff was, so good. And that's one of my favorite memories of something related to Pride and Prejudice. I also got a little Christmas ornament I'm just now remembering. So every Christmas I hang a little Pemberley ornament with a scene from the book on it. On my tree.
Cute.
But so that is one of my favorite Pride and Prejudice memories. Do you have like a first Pride and Prejudice memory that kind of started you on your Jane Austen journey?
Yes. First of all, I'm so jealous of you. I need to go visit there ASAP.
Add it to the list.
Yeah. I think my first memory of Pride and Prejudice was probably reading it in like AP English class. And I remember falling in love with it. Something about it, the way it was written, so in love with her writing style. And then I did end up reading like all of her other books in one sitting. But then I remember going to watch the movie immediately after. So I was very proud of myself that I had read the book before I watched the movie.
Yeah.
And so I went to watch the movie and I heard the soundtrack for the first time. And that sound, my husband will sometimes just put on the movie and then I'll hear the soundtrack and just come running in because that's how much like I'm locked in when I hear that soundtrack. I want it as the soundtrack to my life, literally. And then I just fell in love with the outfits. And of course, Matthew Macfadyen, I'm literally in love with him. And Keira Knightley, it was like my first thing I'd ever seen of her. And, and it was just magical and can never be recreated, in my opinion.
Okay, that reminds me too of, or somehow, hop, skip, and a jump, this reminded me of when my friend had a Pride and Prejudice party for her 27th birthday, and we had like what lovely boiled potatoes. We made a bit out of everything and like formed the party around Pride and Prejudice. Yeah. But we all watched the 2005 version, and there's a moment where after Bingley and Jane meet and they're walking through a ball, and Bingley like reaches out and kind of like touches the ribbon on Jane's back without her knowing. And I literally took a video because it's my favorite scene, and all of us just start screaming at the top of our lungs. And the video, multiple videos of different scenes, is just 15 women just screaming at the top of their lungs while there's like candlelight and potatoes. It was fantastic.
That sounds amazing.
Honestly, I recommend, if you are thinking about throwing a Pride and Prejudice party, I recommend, and I also recommend adding potatoes into the mix because it was a good time.
I actually am going to text my friends immediately after this to coordinate a Pride and Prejudice party to do exactly that. That's fantastic.
You'll have to, we'll circle back and talk about how it went.
Sounds good.
Okay, so obviously I am a 2005 fan, but my family are hardcore 1995 BBC Pride and Prejudice stans.
Wow.
And so that was my introduction to the story at all, was every year, like to this day, to now, we have a Pride and Prejudice day and we stay in our pajamas all day and we move the couch across the living room and in front of the TV. And we like pop popcorn and have tea and make snacks and just eat and binge watch all 6 episodes in one sitting. And that's how we spend the entire day. And it's phenomenal.
I think that's amazing.
I would recommend. I really, really recommend doing that, especially if you're with your mom and your sister, because that just makes it better.
It's so good. And honestly, the 1995 and the 2005, they both did such a good job at being accurate, and I truly don't think we'll ever be able to match another historical adaptation in the same way ever again than Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 and the 1995 version, because it was so... The minimal makeup, the soundtrack, the outfits, the sets, the natural looking faces, because that was before people really got any work done in like the early 2000s and late 90s. And I think just all of it, especially in comparison to the set photos that got leaked of Wuthering Heights, I'm scared. It's not the same.
Oh,
not the same.
Okay. Let's talk about that, because I saw those leaks. I covered those leaks, and I'm just so hyperfixated, and my entire Twitter X timeline is hyperfixated on how inaccurate the wedding dress looks for the time period. So how have you been feeling? Like, what is your thought process? Please let me in.
So, okay, I have so many thoughts. But first of all, the casting for the new Wuthering Heights adaptation was so inaccurate that I'm just literally debating if it was a joke or not. Like, it had to be. Now, don't get me wrong, I am obsessed with Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. I think they're both fantastic and stunning and amazing. But I'm convinced they didn't even read the book, because if you have read the book, then you would know that Heathcliff is supposed to be a dark-skinned gypsy. He is definitely a man of color. There's no debating that. So Jacob Elordi does not fit the bill for that. So I was just confused with that. And then second of all, Margot Robbie is absolutely stunning and she can never do wrong. But Catherine Earnshaw is supposed to be an 18-year-old brunette, not a blonde. So there's that.
Okay. Why do you think they did that? Do you have any theories, or do you have any thoughts on what their thought process could have been?
I have a couple theories on why they made so many things wrong with Wuthering Heights adaptation. I think Margot Robbie is a marketing genius. I think what she did with Barbie was crazy.
So good.
I mean, with the Barbenheimer whole event, it was the cinematic event of the year. So I have one theory that she is stirring the pot on all of this drama and creating somewhat of a marketing ploy so that people go watch it, and that's that they're actually playing different characters than what we think. So like I said, Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff are supposed to be blonde and then a man of color. So my theory is that Jacob Elordi is actually playing Edgar Linton and Margot Robbie is playing Isabella Linton, who is actually blonde. And Edgar Linton is actually supposed to be fair, brunette, blue eyes. So those characters make much more sense for Margot and Jacob than the other ones. That's one theory. Or my second theory is that Emerald Fennell is just the queen of 80s and camp and just this kind of like nostalgic almost feel that's very specific to 80s. So my theory is that she's actually doing a crazy 1980s retelling and completely changing the story for Margot and Jacob.
That would be so interesting, because now that you say that, the story takes place essentially like before 1801, or before and around 1801.
Yeah.
And the photo of Margot Robbie in the wedding dress looked very, like, some people were saying it looked kind of 1860s, essentially not 1790s or early 1800s at all. Yeah. But it does actually look somewhat 1980s. So
it does.
Wait, I'm kind of locked in on this. Now I'm so curious to see like the official first look of the actual costumes, because the only first look we've gotten at Wuthering Heights so far is someone just like with a finger and grass in their mouth.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten like an actual full body shot of anyone, or even photo confirmation of who is playing who. We've only gotten like deadline announcements and kind of news reporting. So, wait, that's a great theory. I'm obsessed with that.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it could be one of those. I don't think Margot Robbie is too smart to take on a role that she knows people would have some sort of like upset about. So I think it's got to be one of those two.
And I feel like Emerald Fennell too is not, like, she has proven time and time again that she does not do things at face value. She loves like a complicated, nuanced, almost bait and switch of like drawing you into a story and then surprising you. So stay tuned, y'all. Emerald Fennell, we'll watching.
If I was right, I'm going to talk about it on another episode.
Yes. Okay, wait. I so hope this is right, just for you to be the one who found it. That would be so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course we have our Pride and Prejudice adaptations. We have our Wuthering Heights adaptations. We also thought it could be fun to go through some recommendations for our other like historical girlies of favorite historical romances. As a lover girl myself, I love a historical romance. So if you have already seen all of these, hit me up and I will give you more recommendations. Yeah. But I just watched Mr. Malcolm's List with my mom, and oh, it was so good. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Bridgerton without the spice, and it's about a woman who kind of gets rejected by the most eligible bachelor because he has a list of like very, very Darcy-esque, honestly. He has like a list of qualifications and she didn't meet them, etc. And so she kind of creates this fake version of her friend for him to fall in love with. Naturally, everything gets complicated, but I recommend. The music is gorgeous. And then my other go-to is Anne of Green Gables, or Anne with an E.
So good. Just
like Pride and Prejudice, there is like an older version and a newer version that people gravitate towards. So there is the 1980s Anne of Green Gables with Megan Follows, and then Anne with an E, which is on Netflix, with Amy Beth McNulty. And oh my gosh, the story is so gorgeous. I feel like Anne might be the first character I ever really resonated with. And she just looks at the world with so much beauty and imagination. She's an orphan who gets adopted by this older brother and sister duo who are both unmarried. And that's why they still live together, and kind of helps them on their farm and makes friends for the first time. And she has a little bit of a temper, which gets her into a lot of trouble, as well as her imagination and her love of books. And it's just like good-hearted chaos, which I love. And Anne with an E kind of takes a little bit of a grittier, more realistic approach. They add in a couple new plot lines to make it a little bit more dramatic, but still not in a way that compromises the integrity of L.M. Montgomery's novel, which I appreciate. And Gilbert Blythe is my number one like book crush for forever and ever, for all time. Yeah, I feel like in high school everyone was gravitating towards Mr. Darcy, and I was gravitating towards Gilbert Blythe. So 15 out of 10 recommend. And even though there are only 3 seasons of Anne with an E, please watch it if you love the books, because justice for that show. It got canceled, and then it got like a billion signatures. A million, I know a million versus a billion is very different, but it got a lot of signatures.
It got a lot.
It got a lot. And people were like creating billboards. Just everyone was starting all these social campaigns to save the show, which just emphasizes how like important it was and how much it touched viewers. So if you love a historical drama, I recommend that one. And then for something that's a little bit more like Hallmark movie vibes, I really recommend When Calls the Heart. Season 12 just ended, so the full thing is available on Hallmark Plus right now. And the first season kind of follows a teacher named Elizabeth who moves from the big city to a smaller town and becomes their teacher. Yep. There are some handsome strangers. Ooh. There are some very nice new friends. And it's just one of those like feel good, slightly aesthetically inaccurate romances that, you know, we eat up because it's a comfort show. It really is. It's just one of those things that just makes you feel better when you finish it than when you started, which I love. And then if y'all are not historical people, romance people, which if you're not a historical fan and you've made it this far into the episode, props to you, because we chatted so much about that. There is a new movie coming out this weekend, Death of a Unicorn, which is in theaters March 28th. It's a new A24 movie with Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd and my boy Will Poulter. I love that man. And the movie is about Jenna and Paul are a father-daughter duo, and they go on a road trip where they hit a unicorn with their car, as one does. And when they make it to like Paul's boss's house, I believe, the boss wants to figure out how they can exploit the unicorn. So pretty edgy, kind of fantastical. I'm pretty sure someone called it Jurassic Park, like on drugs, which I was like, ooh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Excited to see that movie. So excited to see the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, which is re-releasing in some theaters April 20th. So make sure you guys go check your local theaters to see if it's playing near you.
Yes.
But historical girls, romance girls, you are in the right place.
Absolutely.
So internet, do your thing. But check out all of our movie and entertainment coverage at Brit Co, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.